For my English summative, I watched the classic 1931 film Frankenstein, directed by James Whale and made by the company Universal Studios, which is still around today nearly 100 years later. I'll start with a summary of the classic movie before moving on to my work and the progress I made in revamping the already successful film. The movie Frankenstein starts off with an obsessed and crazed scientist that goes by Dr. Henry Frankenstein. He is not to be confused with his creation, who goes by Frankenstein's monster. Dr. Frankenstein has a plan to create life from inanimate body parts gathered from already deceased people. With his help from his loyal companion Fritz, Frankenstein successfully creates life by striking the assembled body with lightning. You may recall the famous lines,
"It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!"
even if you haven't seen the movie before. Frankenstein's monster, although not evil, causes havoc due to its lack of knowledge and inexperience with the world. He escapes the castle in which he was made and stumbles upon a little girl who he accidentally drowns. Throughout the movie, Dr. Frankenstein is torn on whether or not he should destroy his creation or let it live. He can never make a decision and waited until the monster killed the little girl before realizing that it was probably a mistake. The townsfolk formed an angry mob and chased the monster into a mill, then burnt the mill down with it still inside. After everyone realized that the creation was gone, things went back to normal. There are multiple main characters in the movie Frankenstein. The three I'll be discussing are Frankenstein, his creation, and his fiancée, Elizabeth. Dr. Frankenstein is a slightly insane scientist with the goal to create life out of dead body parts. As he works towards his goal, he slowly starts becoming obsessed with it. His fiancée Elizabeth begins to worry about him as he spends all of his time on his creation. In this movie, Frankenstein breaks a societal norm and doesn't care what others think. He also begins to feel sympathetic for his creation, as it has feelings and emotions too. As it was born, everyone instantly hated it. Frankenstein's monster is a very inexperienced creation. It doesn't know how to act since it escaped and didn't have proper training. You could compare the monster to a little baby. He doesn't get social cues, doesn't know right from wrong, and is very impressionable. Frankenstein's creation is also unaware of its strength. This results in the monster doing very irrational things unknowingly, such as killing the little girl. Elizabeth is Dr. Frankenstein's fiancée. She understands both sides of the story, as she sees what the townsfolk think of Frankenstein's creation, but also sees where Dr. Frankenstein is coming from. She is supportive of his hobby and creation, but also realizes that it is a danger to the people around the castle. Elizabeth is also very worrisome, as the creation is all her husband spends time on. A big key theme that I will elaborate on is a theme of not judging people based on their hobbies, as well as not boycotting or hating something just because it is different. This is prominent in the original movie, when as soon as the monster is created, people look at Dr. Frankenstein very differently. They think he is crazy for making such a being, and obsessed with achieving his goals. Frankenstein ignores them, but knows deep down that the public doesn't agree with his creation. Once the innocent creature accidentally kills a little girl, the whole town decides that enough is enough, and they start to lash out on Frankenstein and his monster. This is proving that people will wait for anything to go wrong before expressing their true emotions. Hatred was very noticeable in the classic version of the film Frankenstein. The town showed hatred for new things, which proves that they were very set back in terms of maturity. They instantly jumped on Frankenstein and his creation and pointed out everything wrong with it, especially after the little girl drowned. Even prior to her death, there was much convincing that the monster should be destroyed. Hate is what fueled the story and is what ended it. I'll now explain to you the things I'd change about Frankenstein in my updated film. In my new version of this movie, I'd make it so hate is only prominent in the beginning, and is resolved once Frankenstein learns how to function properly with the help of the townsfolk. In my modern film, I wouldn't make the solution as drastic as it was originally. In the original film, Frankenstein's creature was trapped in a mill and burned down. I will make the little girl fall into the water without dying, and I will make Frankenstein's creature not have the same fate he originally did. People can relate to this because in the 21st century, humans are able to forgive and forget wrongdoings and allow new things, such as a lightning-infused monster, to come into their lives. A modern audience cannot relate to instant death such as the little girl dying. There has to be character progression and a backstory to be able to relate to such an event. I bet you're wondering, who is going to play all these characters? Well, I have a list of 3 main actors that will fill roles in my updated film. I chose Leonardo DiCaprio to portray Dr. Frankenstein in my updated movie. I believe Leonardo would be a great choice to portray Dr. Frankenstein because they are both very handsome men and play lead roles in their respective movies. Leonardo DiCaprio is a very center stage character and typically plays the protagonist and the character you can relate to and feel compassion towards. Dr. Frankenstein is a perfect example of this, as you know what he has done is wrong in most people's eyes, but can't help but feel sympathetic towards him. This is shown when Frankenstein's monster kills Fritz, Dr. Frankenstein's friend and assistant. You can see the debate on whether or not he should scrap his invention. I could very well see Leonardo as a dramatic character in this situation, playing the odds and evens in his head. Leonardo DiCaprio fits this role well appearance-wise because they both have slick back hair and very well-structured faces. Although slightly insane, Leonardo DiCaprio can easily appear to look much like Dr. Frankenstein with his beady eyes and similar posture. Dr. Frankenstein will try and defend the things he loves as much as possible, just like a lead actor would normally do. Helena Bonham Carter will play Frankenstein's wife, Elizabeth, in my movie. They're both overly dramatic people and portray that through their acting roles. When I saw a picture of Frankenstein's wife, I instantly thought of Bellatrix Lestrange from Harry Potter, played by Helena Bonham Carter. They're both dressed in crazy get-up and obsess over looking great while still being slightly insane. Helena can play a very dainty but evil character, but although not evil, Elizabeth has a certain hate towards her husband's creation. Helena Bonham Carter can play any egotistical woman quite well, which is why I saw her suited well for the role. I can also see her fitting in well with any old-time movie as she wears big black dresses and particularly covers herself in noticeable amounts of makeup. Johnny Depp will play Dr. Frankenstein's monster. They're both quirky characters that don't have amazing situational awareness, but are likable by the audience. I found that Johnny Depp perfectly portrayed Frankenstein. Johnny Depp plays every role very well and can play a curious and unknowingly dangerous monster. Frankenstein's monster is coated in makeup, and so is Johnny Depp in most of his well-known movies. Depp goes from pirate to chocolate factory owner easily, and would not have a problem playing the role of a big green monster. Frankenstein's monster is very stiff and clunky, as he was just born, and can be replicated by a very awkward stance throughout the remake. Towards the end of the updated film, Depp will portray a learning character and develop human-like characteristics as the townsfolk will let him. Overall, I believe he would be the perfect role of Frankenstein's monster just based off his past acting roles. The setting in my updated film does not change. It is still the same time frame and is in the same area. The only thing that changes is the solution to the movie and the characters. It's now time to introduce you to the 4 images I made for the Bring It to Life section of the summative. In the first poster, you see Leonardo DiCaprio as Dr. Frankenstein in front of his creation while raising it alive. This is a crucial scene in both my updated film and the old film because it marks the beginning of the story. Frankenstein raises the monster and the conflict begins, starting to disrupt the peaceful town. I plan the beginning of both movies to be relatively similar, as the real change starts when I alter how the townsfolk handle the monster. I plan for them to take it as a blessing that there is a new thing around them, rather than mob it and kill it. In the next picture, you see Johnny Depp as Frankenstein's monster grabbing Helena Bonham Carter as Elizabeth's arm. She then passes out due to fear of the monster, as she was not expecting it to be wandering around the castle. At this point in the film, everyone isn't sure on how Frankenstein's monster should be acting, so they don't know how to react. In my updated version, I will make it so the monster is more accepted. Even when it grabs Elizabeth's arm, I will make sure that she realizes it's simply a creation and there's no need to pass out. In the next image, you see a very famous poster with slight changes made to it, such as face changes and name changes. This is my favorite out of the 4 I made, as it is the most attention-grabbing. It clearly broadcasts big names and shows the audience that you don't want to miss out on watching this. The font is very old-timey, which indicates the link to the film's original roots with only slight changes. The face changes alone should be enough to grab attention to viewers, as there are 3 very famous actors on it. The 4th and final image is a small mock-up poster I made by adding Johnny Depp's face onto a picture of Frankenstein and customizing my own font in Photoshop. This is the simplest out of all the photos, but I thought it was very effective. Overall, I think the movie Frankenstein was very well made and only needed slight changes to make it more of a modern film. The biggest change I would make is to alter how people view new things. This ties in with the big theme of hatred and the fact that in order for a change to be made, people need to be accepting. Thank you.